Welcome to CCSTV. Top man.
Hello, Galen from the Canadian Carp Society here. I'm out on the bank today in a stretch of river that I fish quite often, and got a lot of good memories fishing this spot. There's a lot of unique fish in this section of river, including a bunch of different mirrors as well as some decent commons. However, one fish in particular I always love seeing come out, and it's a fish that I've had the pleasure of catching. The first time, I think it was in 2017, 2018, at around 17 pounds. So this is a fully scaled mirror that is a resident to my spot, and I've had the pleasure of catching it once, but I've also netted it, I think at least five different times from friends that I've taken out, and it's been either their first mirror carp or at least their biggest. So actually I think it's a number of those people's PB mirror. Now this particular mirror, when I first caught it, I just saw it as another fully scaled, but after I started to do a lot of underwater filming, this fish, it just always wants to be on film. It's always there, and it's very tricky to catch. As of recently in this year, 2021, so it would have been end of June, I managed to get it on film, and it did me over, I think, 3 or 4 different times. It just has become rig shy, and it's something unique that you don't necessarily see in I guess North America, Canadian waters, but the area I fish is quite pressured, so I can see these fish starting to adapt and learn and know when there's a threat, or a presence of some kind of threat or something they feel uncomfortable with around. So let me think here how many times I think it's been caught. We'll go through the list. So I know I caught in 2017 at around 17 pounds. Will Machette guided a guy in, I think it was 2016 or 2015, who caught it, and that's the first known photo of that fish that I know of anyway, or at least know of it existing. And then I guess it would have been in either 2018 or 2019, my buddy Ari, he caught it. I had him out. He hadn't caught many carp in his life, and ended up being his PB mirror. And then Zach, who's also a Canadian Carp Society member, he also caught it in 2019. I think it was just over 20 pounds at that time. And a few photos circulated, and our friend James from the Canadian Carp Society also managed to catch it, and he was hell-bent on catching that particular fish because it's very unique. And then would have been last year in July, my buddy Eric caught it, and it was around 22 pounds, and that's when I actually started to see it on camera. I started to put my cameras in, and it was always showing up on camera in that one particular spot. So I've got a bunch of footage of it swimming around, and I guess last fall, the fall of 2020, my buddy Dan, who was fishing with, he caught it as well, which was awesome because it ended up placing him third in a tournament that we were fishing in, for the biggest fish tournament, and it was, I think, 23.9 at that time. So yeah, it's a fish that's been friendly to us and not necessarily so friendly on the mat. It really puts up a fight, never really gives up, but it's a super unique fish.
What's my most memorable capture? I've had a lot of memorable captures over the years, whether it had been a small mirror out of a little body of water, or maybe it was a giant fish out of the upper river. Maybe it was a 30, my first 30. But the most memorable, at least at this point, was just this past spring. Being new and getting this CCS up and running, we had a small social. John, Wayne, Reg, and myself. We met at a new swim. At least it was new to John and I. And Wayne traveled 2 hours to get here. We met Reg. It was an overcast, really windy day, early spring. We were fishing on Lake Erie, and I showed up a little bit late to the swim, and John and Wayne had already picked the location that they were going to fish side by side. So Reg and I, we fished a couple hundred yards to the right. And looking out all day, we could see the odd fish breaching here and there. But no hookups. A few liners for all four of us. I mean, it was nothing spectacular. But we stuck it out. And towards the end of the day, Reg had packed up. And I decided to move down to fish a little closer to John and Wayne. I recast my rods, and I had a take, and it was the first proper take of the day. I had the fish on, it was peel and drag, and boom, it come off. I had a temper tantrum. I was upset. I felt like I lost for the team, the only run of the day, and I blew it. So I recalibrated right-hand rod. At the time, I didn't have three matching rods or reels. So on my 9-foot monster carp rod, I put a cast fairly close to the bank to my right. It sat there for maybe an hour, and then I had a melting run. No lead core on this particular setup, and I know that the area we were fishing was real rocky. So anyways, I get the fish. As soon as I put the net to get it, I look, it's a mirror, and it's a big mirror. Definitely a PB. So I get him in. We all celebrated. I believe it was 21 pounds, but a gorgeous specimen, and a big mirror compared to anything I'd caught in prior years. So after that was done, I quickly recast the same rod on the same spot, and in less than 10 minutes, I had another melting run. Again, peel and drag, no lead core. I'm sweating, I'm nervous, I don't want to lose the fish. I get him, I reach with the net, he gets in the net, I look, fully scaled mirror. 2 mirrors, both 20 plus pounds, 10 minutes apart. It was a phenomenal day. It was a good memory. I had some great photos, and I was real glad to share the moment with John and Wayne. Definitely a good memory, and my most memorable capture to date.
Favorite rod I've ever used and why? Definitely my short setup. Nash scopes, 10 foot, 3 pound. The handles are, well, the lower section of the rod is retractable. Basically means you can have a fully made rod with that base retracted back into the handle. Makes it really short if you're trying to get in through thick cover or just trying to stalk a margin, for example. A 12-foot rod is just a nightmare in those situations, or even a 13, depends what you normally fish with. I also like short range casting. I actually think I could be more accurate with those. You can really punch it out, so if you've got to get under an overhanging snag or you're fishing tight to to a snaggy object, whether it's a wall or debris, timber, weed, whatever. I find if I'm using my bait, my line clip, and I'm wrapped up, and you've got to really got to whack it into a hole, you can, which I love. And I've literally caught near enough all my carp on them, caught carp up to almost 40 pound at home, and had absolutely no issues playing them. And short rods, definitely underrated. I think they are becoming more and more popular now as people kind of branch out. The distance thing for me, I've never struggled to make the distance. I'm not going to tell you I can cast 150 yards with them, because you can't, but 90% of the time you just don't need to cast that far. And I find that if that's the case, 10 footers are great. Nash scopes, love them.
Okay, we're going on a quick session here. For me, I'd consider it not a short session, but almost a medium session. I just dropped my daughter off at dance camp. It is 7 minutes after 10. I'm gonna go fish a spot on the canal that I've baited up the previous 2 days. I have to be back here at 2 o'clock to pick up my daughter, so I have less than 4 hours. I cut off a little bit of traveling time. I'm gonna be lucky to have 3.5 hours for this session. So let's see what can happen in 3.5 hours, and I'll just try to let you know as we go along. You know what I'm looking for and where my confidence comes from for a short session. Okay, well, we just got to the spot. It's a pretty obscure little location, so I'm really confident no matter when I come here, I'm gonna have the spot to myself. Got bait out here the last 2 days. I'm just gonna top it up a little bit with a little bit more bait before we get the lines out. Got my pigeon conditioner and a little bit of maize here, and we're just gonna fish over a nice spread of this. That way, hopefully, if we pick off one fish, there'll be some other fish at the fringe that might still be comfortable enough to have another run while we're just doing a short session here. And it looks like there's some boats coming through today, and that, for whatever reason, I'm a little more confident when there's some boat traffic. So let's see how this plays out. I've got 10:30. So yeah, this is pretty much going to be a 3-hour session. So let's see what can happen in 3 hours. So the one thing that I had in my mind for this video is I'm just going to kind of highlight what makes me confident, just because I know a lot of us carp anglers, like, we probably learned on our own. We didn't really have a lot of other people around to bounce ideas off or to share sessions with, so everyone kind of puts together their best practices on their own. And now that I've gotten a little further along in carp angling and I'm spending some more time on the bank with different anglers, I'm seeing things that they have confidence in, and it's kind of contrasting with where my confidence lies. So it's neat to see what other anglers, what they find important to their sessions and that, and the differences between my approaches. So I'm just going to highlight things that are important to me, and then they may contrast with what you have, or you know, if you're a little bit earlier on in your skill level or your experience with carp, then you know, it might be something for you to try out and incorporate in your fishing. But for me, on a short session, I either want to be at a spot where I'm confident there's some numbers, or I want to make sure I'm fishing over some bait. So I've got the bait part taken care of, and I got the spot to myself. So the next thing that gives me some confidence is getting a good drop. So, and you may or may not know what I'm talking about with a good drop, but depending on how your lead feels when it makes contact with the bottom, it's going to send some vibrations back through your line, and as you go along, you'll be able to feel the difference between what it's like to land on rock, on silt, on sand. Like, everything will send different information back to you. So on a short session, I want to know that my rig is presented well. So you know, you may want to, before you go out, if you can't really feel the difference, maybe just walk around with the heavy lead on and feel the difference between dropping it on a walkway, or on grass, or on mud, just even around different things on the bank, and just see what the feedback is when that lead makes contact with that. So anyways, I'm kind of babbling now, so I'm gonna get the lines out, or else I'm not gonna catch anything. Just before I put the line out, just confidence wise, I'm confident. My confidence comes from pineapple, anything pineapple, butyric acid, and biotin. I like to use a little bit of biotin sometimes when I'm preparing my bait, and then when I put my actual hook baits out, I like a pineapple spray with butyric acid. So today I'm going to be fishing some fake maize on a Ronnie rig, size 2 hook. I just have some slightly contrasting colored corn here, and there's been a lot of maize gone in with the pigeon conditioner, and so that's kind of a match the hatch sort of thing. And then I'm only going to fish 2 lines today. My other line is going to be a Ronnie rig, size 2 hook, with a snowman rig. And this is completely different than the ground bait and the maize. So this is hopefully going to stand out from everything else. And you know, if I start getting runs specifically on the corn, then I'll switch both of them to the corn, but and vice versa. But we got the spray on. I'm just going to feel for a good drop and wait for the alarm to. Finally got the lines in. We've got a boat gone past. I've had a bunch of line activity already, but the one thing that I do more often than most people is I fish a tight line. I just kind of use it as a general gauge as to whether or not I should be introducing more bait. If I'm getting lots of line activity and I'm not hooking up, I don't introduce any bait. If I'm not getting any line activity, then I generally assume the fish have cleaned off the bait and moved on, and then I'll kind of reintroduce a portion of bait. But if you're getting a lot of line activity and you're not hooking up, over a little bit of time, you're going to have to question whether or not your rig is working right, whether there's other fish bumping into your line, or if the fish are keyed in on some other food item that you've introduced that you're not using as a hook bait. But I do get a bit of line activity here from other species. I think I get a little bit of some smallmouth bumping into my line, but at different times of the year, different species will move in shallow, and you might get some kind of false indications in that from, you know, bycatch or different species that you're not targeting. But that seems a little bit carpy. But anyways, lines are in. I'm happy with the presentation, and we're getting some line activity. We've seen some fish surface, so hopefully something good's going to happen soon. I'm not sure how many are, because I haven't really paid much. I'm not. hooked up to our first fish. I'm not sure if this is the snowman rig. I think it might be the snowman rig. We're kicking up a few weeds. There's some like riprap down here that I don't really want to get the fish involved with, so I'm just gonna play it easy and hopefully it'll come up to the surface for me. But this is probably just over half an hour of being here. I'm not 100% sure the size of this fish just yet. It's playing like an upper double, but I could be wrong. So that's in essence what a quick session fishing is all about. So this is going to highlight the importance of baiting a larger patch, is that if I can play the fish over here, then hopefully the fish on the right side of the baited patch might still play ball as the session goes along here, and we can keep this swim productive. There's still a bit of life left in this fish, but I'm going to concentrate on landing it right now.
Yeah. Well, I pulled mine out just in case. Okay, cool.
Quarter after 11, I got first fish on the bank. I got here, I got the lines in. I guess it's been closer to 45 minutes for the first fish, but that's the idea. It's mid-August. You know, a lot of people struggle in the heat of the summer, the middle of the summer, but the reason I fish the canal, if the fish is fine, he's just sitting in the net chilling out. The reason I fish the canal a lot for my short sessions is no matter which way the wind is coming from, or what the pressure is, or the temperature, or the amount of rain that we've had, like I generally find the water here is fairly stable, and I can depend on the conditions for a short session. I don't have to, you know, worry about rising water, falling water, changing temperatures, changing pressure, changing wind, how that affects the visibility. It's generally fairly stable here, so you know if you have a chance to get out that, you know, the water's not going to be your worst enemy. But anyways, let's get this up on the mat, have a quick look, and get it back. Yeah, I couldn't remember which rig went off, but it ended up being the triple corn stack on the Ronnie rig. But got a nice clean fish here. It's got a little leech on his. It's got a little leech on his chin here. So I don't know if that's a indication of clean water or not, but forgot my water bucket at home. Thankfully I had a rolled sandwich bag in my pack. Little bit of pre-baiting. I'm getting crazy line activity. I'm not sure what's happening, but got a nice clean fish here. Probably a mid-double, maybe 15, maybe 16 pounds. Nice clean fish. Nice day on the water. And a perfect way to spend time when you're waiting for your daughter's dancing lessons to finish up. Gonna send him back. We'll send this one back and try for some more. Okay, we've gone through a couple waves of fish activity since the first fish. I've dropped 2 runs since the first fish, and my cousin who's joined me today, Corwin, he's had a couple of dropped runs himself. But I'm hopeful. I've got I can stick around for maybe another half an hour. The fish seem to be back on us, so hopefully something will happen, and I'll be able to land another fish before this session is done. The rig that I was most confident in has basically taken all 3 of my runs. It's the triple corn stack, and the 2 yellow pieces of corn and that fluorescent one on the top, just for extra contrast over the ground bait. The snowman rig, which I thought would contrast the ground bait the most, has just basically gotten line activity and no real takes. So I'm not gonna switch anything up right now. I'm just gonna coast out the last half an hour, crush a can of pop because I'm kind of cooking in the heat, and just got my fingers crossed to finish with one more fish. I'm a little disappointed that I dropped that last fish there. It took a good run, and I think I just had the drag a little tight because I don't think I had it adjusted properly from when I was playing the last fish, and it may have been the reason I had the hook pull, but maybe not. But I'm taking the blame for that drop fish, and anyways, I'm going to sit on my hands for a couple minutes and finish that can of pop, and hopefully there'll be something a little more productive before the session is officially over. Okay. It's 1:30 now. So Rory's dance camp is over in half an hour or so. I've been talking to Corwin, and we've decided that I'm gonna leave my lines in. He's only got one rod in, so he can sit behind the 3 rods, his rod plus my 2, and I'm gonna convince Rory to come back here and hang out for a little bit, and then maybe sneak another 45 minutes or an hour on to the end of this session to try to get one more fish. We've had a lot of drop runs and lots of line activity, so it even though it's super hot out and it's a high pressure day, it still feels like the fish are cooperating. So I'm gonna go pick up Rory from dance class and then try to finish this session with another fish. Just back from getting Rory from dance class. I was driving by going to park the car, and I saw he was playing fish. So the theory was pretty sound. Now on this little session, one for Corwin while he was watching my rods while I was getting Rory, and then one for me earlier. But 2 nice clean fish so far. Hopefully I can catch one by myself, and maybe Corwin can get another before we go. But that was pretty much the extent of the session that we were hoping for, and if anything else comes in, I'm gonna consider that a bonus. But a little bit of pre-baiting and a little bit of patience, and we're doing okay. I apologize for the audio. I know the camera's kind of pointing right into the wind right now, but it is what it is. My left-hand rod with the triple corn stack is, I think it had 2 runs while I was gone, and I think it's probably taken at least 80% of the runs that we've had, or the bulk of the runs anyway. But I'm not going to switch my other rig. I'm going to leave it, even though it's had almost no activity. I'm just going to leave it out just for the sake of being different. I know if I copied it, I could probably take another run quicker, but I'm just going to not. No, I'm not being lazy. I'm just not putting out a different rig. But I don't think we're going to stay much longer. I've been sitting in the sun way too long, and it's like 30 degrees before the humidex. The sun is strong, the humidity's high, but I'd like to finish with one more fish for myself. But you know, if Corwin gets another one, then I think either way, I think I'm going to try to stick it out just for the one fish. And the life of a parent with a busy kid, I've got to get Rory home and fed and everything and ready for soccer, because she's got soccer this afternoon. So I'm just happy to squeak in these little sessions and do little things to kind of boost my confidence. You know, make sure I'm using some sharp hooks, some good rigs, some attractive baits, some pre-baiting, you know, fishing some good conditions, some stable water with, you know, some quality gear and you know, some quality company. So I've got all the ingredients for a nice session, and it's worked out. It's pretty good so far. So gonna go sit in the shade, have another glass of water, and wait for the fish gods to treat me one more time. This feels like a serious fish. You want to help me row? Hold on. Okay, when you hear that, that means don't reel it so much, okay? It's gonna take a while. He's a big fish. Stop reeling when you hear that, okay? Okay, take a break. Just pull on the rod a little bit. There you go. Keep reeling. Think it's big?
Probably.
Can I see if he's stuck in the weeds? Can I hold the rod for a sec? I just want to see if he's stuck in the weeds. Okay, come on, Earl. This is a big fish. We might have to move. We might have to move. Oh, we got lucky. He moved away from the log. We'll try to get him right up on this hump here, okay? And then Corwin, don't poke at him with the net until he's over the hump, okay? Okay. This is a big fish, Ro. Okay, stop reeling for a sec. This is a big fish, honey. Oh, the water changed direction, I think. You're gonna be hungry for dinner after this. Whoa! This is a good fish, eh? Stop reeling for a sec. Let's see if we can steer him in. He's got some really weird scales.
Like a half year.
These are my favorite kind of fish. Hold on. Stop reeling for a second. I might need to loosen the drag a bit. You might think this is a bad idea, but I don't want to have a hook pull when it gets close. Okay, try standing up again. Stand up. Okay, you ready? Hold on, stop rolling. We're going to try to just steer it. We're just going to try to steer up and forward, okay? Ready? Hold on, then. Walk this way. Walk this way. Slowly. Everything's good. Everything's good. We're gonna get some water, okay, Ro? High five. Yeah. That's a real good fish, Ro. Okay. The plan is we're going to do a quick little bit to camera with this fish, and then we'll weigh it and release it. Corwin thinks 21 pounds. You think 63? Rory thinks it's 63 pounds. Let's see what we got here. Okay. I hope Rory's weight is right. I hope Rory's weight is right. So I think Simon said he would give us $2,000 to spend at Carp Kit if we caught something over 50 pounds. It's not as big as I thought it was. I think it's gonna be a low 20 or high teen. Do you think it's gonna be over 20? You said 63, so let's see what we got. What do you think about that, Ro? You wanna give it a kiss? Yeah. Another clean fish. Some of the fish that I've caught in different sections of the canal aren't necessarily clean all the time, but I feel like these fish are doing fairly well here. But you know, what's that? 3 fish now between us?
Yep.
Lots of dropped runs. For like a little 3.5, potentially 4-hour session in the sweltering heat, I think we did just fine. This side is super cool, kind of like muddler pattern on this side, and the fish is super angry, right, Ro?
Yeah.
All right, we'll get a quick weight, and we're gonna call this a session. You said 63 pounds, right? Well, that's what we got the scale for. Okay, we got the scale zeroed out. 1 pound 10 ounces it took to zero out the sling. Did you take any pictures?
No.
Okay. Here, do you want to do a quick picture?
Yep. Might want to get a little bit more on his mouth, just because it's bleeding a little bit.
Okay, ready, Ro? Let's see if we can keep him angry.
Look at me, Rory. Cheese. Awesome.
Thanks. Alright, here we go. 1 pound 10 ounce zeroed out. Try to be quick so we don't stress him out too bad. Ready? I might not be strong enough to do this because I didn't sleep last night too much. The scale never really locked in, but it's actually just over 18 pounds. So maybe he's got an empty belly or something, who knows. But it's definitely a solid fish, and perfect way to end this session. And there's nothing about this spot that is an actual spot. There's no features I'm fishing over. There's nothing special. It's just this nondescript shoreline that I've baited. So I've kind of made this my spot. I just picked it because it was hidden from the sidewalk and there was some shade and the picturesque background. There was, so you know, I'm really confident with what you can accomplish with a little bit of pre-baiting. Send this fish back, and we might do a little personal fun fishing for a little while, but this is pretty much the end of the video. Careful, there's rods on the ground, okay, hon? Well, the water's, it's pretty tricky shoreline, hon. We can let him go over here and watch him swim away if you want. Okay, let me lower him down, okay? Ready? Let go.
A bucket list fishing trip, where I would like to go before I kick the bucket, so to speak. If you know me, you know I'm all about that history and I'm all about the story. And I think if you were to make a Venn diagram of history and carp fishing, in the dead center of that would be the Red Mire Pool, where history was made on more than one occasion. The location of the very first UK 40, Richard Walker. A passion for angling, one of the most influential fishing movies pretty much ever produced. And I think that would be the place for me. You know, it's a small, intimate farmer's property, and it's, or at least it was once upon a time back when it was the Red Mire Pool. Now, it still is the Red Mire Pool, but it's not really owned by the original owners and administration that used to run it. So it's a little different now, and obviously Clarissa, Richard Walker's 40, is no longer alive. Neither is Chris Yates's 50-pounder, and many of the other very respectable specimens that used to swim there. But there are still some very respectable fish in that small, I was going to say lake. It's not a lake. That pond, really. It's a pretty special little location, and I'd like to go there and run the same type of tackle that those legends had. And if you know anything about me, I'm all about the fact that some of that older stuff, you know, we oftentimes chalk up, you know, that the newest technology is the latest and greatest, and yet there are people today using the newest stuff that couldn't land some of the fish that were landed at the Red Mire pool back in the 60s and 70s, right? And I look at that and say, like, if Chris Yates could land a 50 on a Mitchell 300 or a center pin, I'm not sure which one it was now, but he was catching carp on center pin rods and reels on the Red Mire pool, like respectable fish, you know, or using Mitchell 300s or Intrepids or, you know, those classic clicky reels, you know, with the most janky drag systems, and yet they were still landing some incredible specimens. So I think if I were to go there, I'd want to have a Richard Walker 10-foot rod, and I'd like to have either a Mitchell match or a Mitchell 300, you know, 12-pound, 15-pound line, something like that on there, and just have that opportunity to sort of connect with the people who really got carp angling started in the UK, really made the sport what it is today. I think that would be an absolute honor, and that's definitely a bucket list fishing destination for myself.
What's my most memorable capture? Well, the last few years I've caught some absolutely stunning specimens. But I'd have to say the icing on the cake would have came from a session this spring with my wife, fishing one of our favorite swims. Had a absolutely remarkable doubleheader that day. Her rod went off first, mine went off mid-battle. It's chaos on the bank. We were fishing kind of close quarters, small section of river, probably 30 yards wide, but we were 10 yards apart fighting our fish. It's quite crazy, lines crossing. Only had one net too. That was a little tricky. I had to kind of put the brakes on mine, horse it in a little quicker than I would have liked. I knew she had a big fish on. I had one on too. Got mine in the net after about a 10-minute battle. Dropped that gear quickly ran down the bank, grabbed the sling, it's the only other thing I had. Quickly dove into the water with the sling, and perfect timing. She had hers just ready to land. My God, that whale came in and I was speechless. I knew she caught an absolute gorgeous fish. The dust was settled. We had both in the bag, up on the bank. My God, what a brace. She had an absolutely stunning 36 two-tone. And I had a nice, absolute brute of a 29-pound common. To have both those fish in a brace, oh, what a morning that was, what a moment. Screaming doubleheader of absolute Canadian chunks. I've had some close second place, but yeah, that doubleheader and that brace definitely have a special place in my heart for many and many years to come.
Good morning. Today you join me in session here in Collingwood, one of the rare times I'm actually out this year. And today we're going to be covering the story of my worst fish loss ever. Funny enough, it happened just over my shoulder here about 2 years ago. I've been fishing this spot for about 5 years, and the average fish out of here is about a 15-pound common. At the time I'd been using my underwater camera for quite a while, and all I saw were commons and other pretty regular carp on it. But the one day I was out on a weekend, and the first ever mirror slid onto the camera. I almost had to do a double take just to be sure it was a mirror. I'd never caught a mirror to date, just commons, so it was a pretty special moment to see that fish. Unfortunately, I had to pack up and go home for the day, so I didn't have a chance to catch it. But I put some bait in and kept baiting the spot for about a week or so. I returned the next weekend, and to my surprise on the camera there was that same mirror swimming around feeding. I watched it for about 3 hours and sort of deciphered the pattern where it was feeding. Most commons, when they come in, they sort of sit on the spot, nibble away, and don't care too much about rigs or cameras. This fish, though, was different. This one seemed to come in, grab a mouthful, then swim off, and then every few minutes would swim through, grab another mouthful, and swim off. I deciphered a pattern to its behavior, where it kept coming in near the same big flat rock and picking up a mouthful of bait, and then swimming off to eat it. I switched my rig, and on its next pass, it actually picked up my bait, and I caught it. Now, as soon as the alarm started, I was pretty excited because I knew what I had on the end of the line. I fought it very gently all the way to the net. It took about 10 minutes or so fighting this fish, and when it surfaced, it had a beautiful scale pattern along its back and a nice, soft, leathery, smooth side. As you can hear, this spot gets quite a few vehicles going right by it. And by the time I had this fish almost to the net, there's about 3 cars stopped on the road watching. I bent down with my net. I gently pulled the fish up and slid the net underneath. And then as the fish was about halfway across the draw cord, the hook popped out of its mouth. My heart went into my throat, and I lunged forward to try and get the fish in the rest of the net. But unfortunately, I ended up pushing the fish out deeper, and I was unable to reach it. And it seemed like forever as that fish looked at me and sort of slid off the draw cord to the net and swam away into the depths. I remember sitting there on my knees and just yelling as loud as I could, "No!" And after a few seconds, I turned around to see a person sitting there in their vehicle just shaking their head as they drove off. And that, to this day, I haven't seen that mirror carp back on the underwater camera in this spot. It's now 3 years later. And so that is my worst fish loss ever. To this date, I still have not landed a mirror carp. Hopefully, though, one day it will be back.
Okay, my worst accident on the bank. I've had a lot of accidents where I've gotten hurt over the years.
Sorry for that.
But I think the worst accident I had was where I luckily didn't get hurt, but I was very, very close to meeting my end. I wasn't carp fishing. I was actually bass fishing, but I was in a spot that we always wanted to fish for carp, and we didn't. Kind of after this particular session, I don't think we ever went back to this location. This would have been early 2000s. Like I'm thinking 2005, maybe 2006. And we were hiking in the gorge, a friend and I. We had big hiking packs on with our 2-piece rods, small tackle packs. Oh, pause it.
Continue on with your worst accident on the bank, which fortunately did not happen as you went down the hill to catch that fish.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, that was exciting. Just got a nice little run, beautiful little calm in there, gorgeous color to it, especially in the morning sun. So I was saying, to go back to the worst accident on the bank. A friend and I were hiking in the gorge, in an area that's really you're not supposed to be, technically, I guess nowadays. Back then there was no trespassing signs or anything like that. It was kind of like an unwritten rule that you just don't go there because it's dangerous. And this particular morning we were exploring. Major part of my fishing is looking for spots and exploring and finding those out of the way spots that other people can't get to find those hidden gems, those fish that people have not had the chance to battle, and we would be the first. This particular morning we had our big heavy packs on and we were hiking down there. The idea is we would go down early in the morning, right at sunrise, you know, just before sunrise to get to the water, because you only have a limited amount of time before the water comes up. The water is controlled by the power generation. So around 8 o'clock every morning, the water comes up and it becomes faster, more dangerous, and you have less shoreline to walk on. So when the water's down, you have tons of shoreline to play with, and it's slippery, it's dangerous, but it's more accessible for an angler. I'll never go back down there and do it again, and I don't recommend anybody else does, but back then I was young and I was willing to take some risks. So this particular morning, as we were hiking along the bank looking for fallen trees, big rocks, anything that would hold some really big fish around it, we saw a lot of big bass, we saw trout, we saw salmon swim by. We did see some big carp, and we had plans to go back for carp at some point. And after this incident, we never did. My friend had gotten ahead of me by, I don't know, 30 yards as we were walking along. He was in much better physical condition than I am, so he could handle the hike a lot better. I was very scrawny and, you know, not very fit, but despite that, I was carrying a much heavier pack. I have a habit of carrying way more gear than I need. And this big hiking pack was really weighing me down. I had 2 fishing rods in one hand, I had a net in another, and I'm just plodding along. It's hot, it was uncomfortable, and he was ahead of me, and we were almost to the next spot we wanted to fish. And as I was taking a step over this one, basically it went from like a kind of like basketball-sized boulders to this one big smooth flat slab that we had to kind of go over the top of at the tree line, and then back down onto more manageable boulders that we could walk on. And as I was going up over the peak of this big flat slab that kind of sloped down to the water like a slide, my right foot got caught into some vines that were coming down just from the tree line. And when I noticed that, I tried to shake it off, which caused my left foot to slip on the slime, and I lost my footing. And as I was kind of leaning forward to try and catch myself, the weight of my backpack just took me sideways, and I ended up laying on my back on this slab with my foot tangled up into the vines and my head about 14 inches away from the water, as you know, the lower Niagara River is raging behind my ears. And I can feel the weight of my pack pulling, because it wants to keep sliding. I can feel the vines giving just that little bit every couple of seconds. And I just started yelling for my buddy. You know, I'm just yelling help, I'm yelling his name. And anybody who knows the gorge knows that sound does not travel well down there. It dissipates very quickly, and he couldn't hear me. He was still walking, he didn't look back. So it was kind of a, oh crap, I'm in a dangerous situation and I'm on my own. So it took me what seemed like forever, what was probably only 30 seconds, to just calm my nerves. And I threw my fishing rods up into the trees, and I threw the net up into the trees. And I realized, okay, now I've got my hands free. But putting my hands on the rock, it was just slime, it was slippery. I couldn't actually get a grip of anything. So I unbuckled the straps of my pack, and I kind of slid it back over my shoulders and down and caught it. And it was heavy, and I was not in the shape to do it, but somehow I was able to throw it up by my feet, and it landed on the vines that were holding my feet. And there was a little bit of give, and it scared me for a second that I might have just kind of done myself in. But I think the heavy pack landing on the vines is what actually helped me be able to maintain a position, and I was able to kind of roll over onto my belly and just kind of push my way backwards up the slope of this rock, and I was just completely covered in muck. I was able to gather my gear and kind of catch my breath, and at this point I looked up and noticed that my buddy had already started fishing, and he wasn't far at all, but despite that, he couldn't hear me. He didn't know I had fallen, and when I went over there covered in mud, he just looked at me and laughed, thinking I just fell in the muck. And when I explained what happened, he was a little bit surprised that he didn't hear me. But luckily, I didn't end up in the water. I didn't get swept away by the current, and I'm here today to tell the story. So yeah, that's probably my worst bankside accident.
Well, here I am, 36 hours into the SSF full campaign, back at Lake of the Prairies. Far cry from what it was last time. I'd opted this time to work my own spot. Ryan's actually fishing an area where he's pre-baited. I think he's having a few. It's been very quiet for me. In the first 24 hours, I managed 120, and 4 o'clock this morning, she whistled off, and a 29 graced the net, which is nice. So they're obviously about. Obviously this is full, it's a little bit different fishing now. The bait quantity is way less than our last campaign, the Prairie Banks. I actually lost an absolute unit at the net at 8 o'clock this morning, which I was pretty choked about. But I think we're going to close out pretty strong. This is actually my last session of the year, unfortunately. So I'm trying to make it a good one. I think we're going to do okay. Well, third morning in, a very misty morning, and we're still at the same point, 120 and 129. Now, I have lots of confidence in my rigs, but unfortunately last night, somehow, the left-hand rod, the hook had actually got caught in the lead core, so that's been sat there all night doing nothing. And Ronnie and Reggie obviously came and had a go at the other one because there was no bait on that. So after a night of listening to fish boshing all over my bait, I'm scratching my head and wondering why the hell I wasn't getting any action. It's all pretty clear now. So I've spotted out some more, and I'm on the last 24 hours now, so fingers are crossed. Oh, there's one there. But yeah, not good. Well, here we are, last day, and not going to plan. 2 fish, a 29 and a 20, which isn't to be sniffed at. It wasn't quite what we were expecting. Oh, that's a run!
by any stretch. Very, very welcome.
Well, that was fun. Before I was rudely interrupted by that fish, I was telling you, yeah, it's been absolutely brutal. 2 fish to that point, strangely enough. I was saying I've tried pretty much everything, casting bags, on the bait, off the bait, and that fish came to a single, launched at a rolling fish about 2 hours ago on the horizon, close to 100 yards. So that was it, single 14 mil citrus pop-up. Crazy. Anyway, I guess the wind is helping us along a little bit here. Hopefully we'll get a few more before we leave. I've got a couple of hours left. So yeah, interesting. Tight lines.